Persian Gulf, March 1st, 2026, 2:30 in the morning. Inside an underground IRGC command bunker 400 miles from Tehran, an Iranian general stared at his screens and smiled. 3 years of planning had come down to this single night. Operation True Promise 4, Iran's most ambitious military strike in modern history. 40 Shaheen-3 ballistic missiles sat ready at 3 underground launch sites along the Iranian coast. 60 Shahed kamikaze drones were armed and waiting at hidden launch pads across Khuzestan province. And beneath the dark waters of the Strait of Hormuz, 8 Iranian mini-submarines were holding position, each carrying 2 anti-ship torpedoes. Completely silent, completely hidden, or so the Iranians believed. The plan was carefully coordinated across 3 phases. First, the 60 drones would launch simultaneously to overwhelm and confuse American radar systems. While American defenses were busy tracking the drone swarm, 40 ballistic missiles would launch from the coast and saturate the Aegis defense network. Then, as the American warships burned through their interceptor missiles, the 8 submarines would fire torpedoes and sink USS Abraham Lincoln from below. Iranian commanders believed this 3-layer attack was impossible to stop. 2 American aircraft carriers operating in the region would be destroyed in a single night. Global oil markets would collapse. America would be forced to negotiate before it could respond. The Iranian general believed he had found the perfect strategy to defeat the most powerful navy in the world. He was catastrophically wrong. The American battle group had been monitoring Iranian movements since the previous afternoon. NSA signals intelligence had intercepted unusual encrypted communications between IRGC commanders. Satellite imagery confirmed increased activity at underground missile sites. And most critically, American P-8 Poseidon anti-submarine aircraft had been flying continuous patrols over the Strait of Hormuz for 6 straight hours, tracking acoustic signatures beneath the surface. 4 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers surrounded USS Abraham Lincoln in a layered defensive formation. USS Michael Mansour, USS Zumwalt, USS John Finn, and USS Rafael Peralta each held assigned positions in the protective screen. Their Aegis radar systems were scanning 500 miles in every direction. Below the surface, the Virginia-class submarine USS Oregon had been silently waiting in position for 4 hours, fully aware of every Iranian submarine in the water. The admiral commanding the battle group had one message for his crew at 2:15 in the morning. Battle stations. All hands to battle stations. At 2:30, the Iranian attack began. 60 Shahed drones launched simultaneously from Khuzestan province and climbed into the night sky. On American radar screens, they appeared as a massive, buzzing swarm of contacts spreading in every direction. This was the Iranian plan, working exactly as designed. Flood the radar picture with hundreds of targets and force American systems to sort through the chaos. American Aegis radar systems detected the drone launch at 180 miles distance. The response was immediate. USS Michael Mansour fired the first volley of SM-2 interceptor missiles, sending them streaking toward the swarm on columns of fire. F-35C fighters already airborne from USS Abraham Lincoln engaged the drones with AIM-120 AMRAAM missiles from beyond visual range. The Phalanx close-in weapon systems aboard the destroyers opened up at closer ranges, their rotary cannons firing 3,000 rounds per minute and filling the air with a wall of tungsten projectiles. Within 18 minutes, 54 of the 60 Iranian drones had been destroyed. The remaining 6 pressed toward the carrier group. USS Abraham Lincoln fired rolling airframe missiles from launchers mounted on the carrier's island structure and eliminated all 6 before they could reach the ship. One drone clipped the superstructure of USS John Finn during the final seconds of engagement, causing minor damage and no casualties. The drone attack had failed completely. At 2:50, the second phase began. 40 Shaheen-3 ballistic missiles erupted from their underground silos at 3 coastal launch sites and streaked upward through the atmosphere on trails of fire. Iranian radar operators watched their screens with confidence. Perfect launches, perfect trajectories. The missiles were climbing toward USS Abraham Lincoln 40 miles offshore. American satellites detected the launches 8 seconds after ignition. USS Zumwalt fired the first SM-3 Block 2A interceptors, missiles specifically designed to destroy ballistic threats outside the atmosphere. They climbed rapidly on burning pillars of light, chasing the Iranian weapons into the upper atmosphere. The first intercept occurred at 90,000 feet altitude. An Iranian Shaheen missile shattered on impact. Debris scattering harmlessly and falling into the dark waters of the Persian Gulf far below. Over the next 12 minutes, the Aegis network executed a systematic chain of intercepts. One by one, Iranian missiles were destroyed at altitudes between 80,000 and 120,000 feet. 32 of the 40 Iranian missiles were eliminated before they could begin their descent. The remaining 8 continued falling on steep trajectories toward the carrier group. USS Abraham Lincoln activated her rolling airframe missiles and phalanx systems as the final line of defense. The close-range defensive weapons tracked each incoming missile and engaged them in rapid succession. 6 more Iranian missiles were destroyed in the final seconds of their approach. 2 missiles impacted the water 400 meters from the carrier, sending massive columns of white water hundreds of feet into the air. The shock waves rolled through the hull. No significant structural damage. No casualties. The ballistic missile attack had failed completely, but the most dangerous part of the Iranian plan was still unfolding beneath the surface. 8 Iranian mini-submarines had been holding position below the Strait of Hormuz throughout the attack, waiting for the moment when American surface ships would be overwhelmed and distracted. Their commanders believed the submarines had gone undetected. They began moving into torpedo firing positions at 3 in the morning, opening their torpedo tube doors, preparing to send USS Abraham Lincoln to the bottom of the Persian Gulf. USS Oregon had been tracking them for hours. The Virginia-class submarine had been lying quietly in the deep water, listening to the acoustic signatures of every Iranian vessel in the area. When the first Iranian submarine opened its torpedo tube doors, USS Oregon fired first. Mark 48 ADCAP torpedoes moved silently through the black water, closing on their targets at high speed. Surface ships launched rocket-propelled ASROC torpedoes to assist, targeting submarines identified by the towed array sonar aboard USS Rafael Peralta. MH-60R helicopters operating from the destroyers dropped additional torpedoes on remaining contacts. Within 17 minutes, all 8 Iranian mini-submarines had been destroyed. One attempted to surface and was engaged by a helicopter before it could escape. The undersea threat was completely eliminated, without a single American vessel being struck. At 4 in the morning, the admiral gave the order to strike back. 20 F-35C Lightning II fighters launched from USS Abraham Lincoln in rapid succession, the carrier's catapults hurling each aircraft into the dark sky. Every aircraft carried Joint Strike missiles and precision-guided munitions, loaded with GPS coordinates for the 3 underground launch sites that had fired on the carrier group hours earlier. The F-35s climbed to altitude and pushed to supersonic speed, crossing toward the Iranian coast. Iranian air defense systems detected radar contacts but could not establish weapons quality tracks. The F-35's stealth technology reduced its radar cross-section to roughly the size of a golf ball, invisible to the Iranian S-300 missile batteries that desperately searched the sky for targets they could not find. At 4:30, the first Joint Strike missile separated from its aircraft and descended toward the Iranian coast on a terrain-hugging flight path, flying at 100 feet altitude through the darkness. The precision guidance system directed the weapon to the entrance of the first underground missile site. The impact detonated the facility's own stored munitions in a catastrophic secondary explosion that collapsed the entire underground complex and sent a fireball hundreds of feet into the air, visible from the carrier 40 miles at sea. Over the following 40 minutes, the remaining F-35s methodically destroyed all 3 underground missile sites, 2 IRGC naval bases, and 1 submarine support facility. Every aircraft returned safely to USS Abraham Lincoln. Iran had fired 48 surface-to-air missiles at the American jets. Not one made contact. One final target remained. Intelligence analysts had identified a coastal command facility near Bandar Abbas, the location from which the entire 3-phase attack had been coordinated. Satellite imagery showed command infrastructure, communications equipment, and the support facilities used by the Iranian mini-submarines. The admiral authorized a ground raid. 36 Marines boarded 6 MH-60S Seahawk helicopters on the flight deck of USS Abraham Lincoln at 5:30 in the morning. Each Marine carried night vision equipment, breaching charges, and specialized intelligence collection gear. The mission was to destroy the facility, capture intelligence, and return to the carrier. The helicopters flew at 20 feet above the water to stay beneath Iranian coastal radar, approaching the shore in darkness at high speed. At 5:45, they reached a rocky beach 2 kilometers from the target facility and fast-roped the Marines to the ground before immediately departing. The Marines divided into 3 teams and moved quickly toward the facility through the darkness. Team Alpha targeted the main command building. Team Bravo moved toward the submarine support docks and fuel storage. Team Charlie secured the perimeter and blocked all exit routes from the facility. The IRGC security force defending the base numbered approximately 70 personnel. They were professional soldiers and they fought hard, but they had spent the entire night watching every element of their operation fail, and their communications with higher command had gone silent hours earlier when the command infrastructure was destroyed. The Marine assault hit them before they could reorganize. Intense firefights broke out at multiple locations throughout the facility. Team Alpha breached the command building using explosive charges and cleared it floor by floor in close quarters combat, securing personnel and seizing computers, hard drives, and communications equipment. Team Bravo fought through heavy resistance at the docks before placing demolition charges on every vessel, fuel tank, and support structure in the area. By 6:15, all objectives were complete. The Marines moved back to the beach with captured intelligence materials. The extraction helicopters returned and lifted the entire force off the beach. At 6:30, with all Marines safely aboard and the helicopters 2 miles out over the water, the team leader activated the demolition charges remotely. The command building collapsed in a massive implosion. Fuel storage tanks erupted in enormous fireballs that sent orange flames 200 feet into the air. The submarine support infrastructure was destroyed in a systematic chain of explosions that tore through the entire facility. Thick black smoke rose over the Iranian coast and was visible for miles in every direction as the sun began rising over the Persian Gulf. American casualties from the entire operation were remarkably light. 9 sailors sustained minor injuries while defending the carrier during the missile and drone attacks. 2 Marines were wounded during the coastal raid, one requiring immediate surgery for a gunshot wound to the shoulder. USS John Finn sustained minor damage to her superstructure from the drone strike, repaired within 48 hours. Iranian losses were catastrophic. All 3 underground missile sites destroyed. 2 IRGC naval bases eliminated. All 8 mini-submarines sunk. The Coastal Command facility completely demolished. Hundreds of IRGC personnel neutralized across all phases of the operation. Operation True Promise 4, 3 years in the planning, had been defeated in a single night. The Iranian general who had smiled at his screens at 2:30 in the morning did not see the sunrise. The underground command bunker he had been standing in was one of the first targets destroyed by American aircraft at 4:30. USS Abraham Lincoln continued flight operations as the sun rose over the Persian Gulf. Aircraft launched and recovered on schedule. Maintenance crews worked on the flight deck. The crew ate breakfast and prepared for the next day's operations. For the American Navy, it had been a long night, but it had never been in any real danger. That was the difference.